We've reached that appointed time this morning, so I'd just like to welcome everyone to our Harnett County Board of Commissioners work session for March the 30th, and call the meeting to order. And I would like to ask Commissioner Witherspoon if he would have our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for all the many blessings that you give us each and every day, Lord. Lord, we ask that you be with us as we go through this meeting, doing the business of Harnett County. May everything that we do be pleasing to you and in accordance with your will. Father, we ask that you be with our law enforcement, first responders, and our military. Bless them. And Lord, especially at this time of the year as we celebrate the rising of your Son, Jesus Christ. We ask all these things in his name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Okay, I believe next we have some presentations from some of our nonprofit groups. Ms. Stewart, would you like to?
Sure, I'll be glad
introduce them?
to. So the first up, we have the Boys and Girls Club report by Elizabeth Colebrook. Elizabeth, are you on the line?
I'm on the line. I'm having some audio trouble.
Great. Well, you can go ahead and get started. We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Elizabeth Colebrook. I'm with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Carolina, the Robin Page Boys and Girls Clubs in the Lillington Shawtown community. We have had a tremendous year this year. It's been difficult at times, but also one that has proven to be fun and rewarding for our kids, even through the time of this pandemic. Our grant funding from the county has supported our Triple Play program as well as our Smart Moves program. And these programs are designed to focus on the health and wellness of our youth. Triple Play is Boys and Girls Clubs of America's comprehensive health and wellness initiative. And we're looking at not just focusing on the physical health of the child, but also the mental well-being, mind, body, and soul, really focusing on the whole child approach. We work on physical activity, teaching them about good nutrition, and helping them develop healthy relationships as well. This program was introduced back in about 2005 from the national office, and we began this program at the Robin Page Boys and Girls Club in 2019. In addition to the Triple Play program, our the Smart Moves program, which is skills mastery and resilience training, has been worked on with our kids there at the club. This program is really focused on prevention and incorporating, it incorporates really up-to-date information that we can use to work with our kids to help them be critical thinkers and be able to be good decision makers when it comes to substance abuse and resisting alcohol, tobacco, and vaping is now one that really has been a highlight of our educational program with this. It's an overall prevention program for drugs and premature sexual activity. It's one that we do really focus on. It's very similar to the DARE programs, like you would think about with school that we've done when we grew up in school. So those programs have gone well at the club. The funding supported those, and especially appreciated this for our Triple Play as we had to get creative this year with the pandemic. We have rerouted our program model. So typically our clubs would be open for a full-day summer program, which would be from about 7:30 to 5:30, and then during the academic school year, we would be open only for about 3.5 hours in the afternoons, from 3 o'clock to about 5:30 or 6, depending on when the kids get out. But this year, we did have to transition into a full-day program model. So kids who would be attending school instead attended the Boys and Girls Clubs, serving as a virtual hub for students so that they could log in, access Wi-Fi, and attend school, with the support of an adult supervision at the club. So it has been a very interesting time for sure. Are there any questions or further details that I could give?
Any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Holbrook? I don't hear or see anybody that seems like they have any questions this morning. We appreciate you sharing with us, and we appreciate what you do for our boys and girls in the Shawtown community, and appreciate the partnership with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, so next we have Transitions Life Care, John Thomas.
Good morning, this is John Toma. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you. Yes, I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak to you this morning, and appreciate your support for seriously ill and vulnerable residents in Harnett County. Transitions Life Care was founded Hospice of Wake County and Hospice of Harnett County, and has been providing in-home care for persons with serious illness and their family for over 40 years. Our office is on Broad Street in Angier. In 2015, Transitions founded the Transitions Kids program to provide pediatric palliative care and hospice for children with life-threatening or terminal illness, and support services for parents and siblings as well. At the time, there was no in-home pediatric palliative care and hospice program, and today, Transitions Kids is the only program of its kind in the region. Because of the lack of insurance coverage and limited in-home benefits, pediatric palliative care must be underwritten by grants and individual donations. Investors like Harnett County government, the Duke Endowment, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Juergen Family Foundation are critical to the sustainability of this program. Specifically, Harnett County funds have been used to provide comprehensive services in the home for children struggling with serious illness, and family support services for parents and siblings. Services include home visits by the interprofessional team that is composed of a pediatric physician, registered nurse, medical social worker, and family life specialists providing visits to the home. Services also include the cost of medications and medical supplies. To date, 3/4 of the $5,000 funding from Harnett County, or $3,750, has been used. Of the remaining funds, $1,250 will be used prior to June 30th and will cover the cost of in-home professional visits, medications, and medical supplies. Thank you for investing in Transitions Kids for vulnerable children. I'd be glad to answer questions, if any.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. I have a question.
Mr. Johnson?
Just wondering what percentage of the money that you spend goes to Harnett County children?
Of the funds from Harnett County, 100% goes to the children's services in Harnett County.
Okay, so I was looking, I saw 2%. I was just wondering where that came from.
Yes, in our application, 2% of the total patients and families that we serve in the year, we do serve 8-county region, 2% of the total patients reside in Harnett County.
2%.
But of the funds that we're asking for and the funds used from Harnett County, 100% is for children in Harnett County struggling with serious illness, and those services are provided in their homes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You want?
Any other questions? Thank you, John. Appreciate you sharing with us this morning and appreciate the service you are providing for not only our children in Harnett County, but those in other areas as well. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have the Veterans Legacy Foundation, John Elskamp.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Again, my name is John Elskamp, Executive Director for Veterans Legacy Foundation. First, I would like to thank the Harnett County Commissioners for their support in our mission to honor veterans and their service. Last year, we submitted for and received a $3,000 grant from Harnett County, the funding to be used for documentation retrieval from the various archives, such as the ones in St. Louis, Missouri and College Park, Maryland, to support veteran cases. These funds are also allocated to be used for award ceremonies and purchase awards, foreign and obsolete awards not issued by the military branches. Thus far, we have spent approximately $412 on ceremony supplies and $1,455 on awards and presentation boxes, but we have been unable to hold any formal presentations due to the COVID restrictions. We have, however, had a few ceremonies where we went to the veterans' homes, but not the more public ceremonies that everyone's used to. On 2 occasions, we actually had to use some of the funds to mail the awards to veterans due to illnesses and, of course, the restrictions. The last planned ceremony was scheduled in March of last year, but we had to cancel that due to the pandemic. At this time, we have 27 sets of Veterans Awards that we are waiting to present when the public gathering restrictions are lifted. The remainder of the grant money, approximately $1,100, we plan to use for documentation retrieval from the archives at both St. Louis and College Park. Both archives have been closed since March of last year, and we are eagerly waiting for their reopening or planned reopening in April. We have 520 open cases right now for veteran research. 35 of those are pending. Of those 35, 22 are Harnett County cases. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Any of the commissioners have any questions? Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning, and we do appreciate what you're doing to honor and recognize our veterans who deserve the recognition for the service they have provided for our country.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Veterans Treatment Court and Mark Teachy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gordon Harrington. I'm the mentor coordinator for the Veterans Treatment Court. We too, as everybody else, sincerely appreciate the investment that the county is making in our treatment court. We have a grant for $5,000, and it's come in very handy. One thing I'd like to straighten out right away is that the veterans treatment, the Combat VTC, which is the name of the 501c3, which has been funded by Harnett County, is a totally different entity from the Veterans Treatment Court. Initially, when we applied for the 501c3 in it was 2013, we brought it in under the name of Veterans Treatment Court Incorporated. We realized shortly after that that was going to cause a great deal of confusion in that this fund, these monies are not in any way directly connected to the Veterans Treatment Court. So we went back and had the name changed to Combat VTC. However, when we applied for the first grant that we applied for, It is entitled as the organization name, Veterans Treatment Court District 11A. Those are the same funds that we use for the 501c3, and our application for the next grant, should it be approved, is actually under Combat BTC with the correct vendor number and the correct federal ID number. As I said, we have received the grant for $5,000. The preponderance of that money has been spent due to circumstances caused by the pandemic. As we all know, there is an incredible housing shortage, and it's been difficult to place homeless veterans in safe housing because there's just not a lot around. So we've had to use some of these monies for other types of housing, such as hotels and et cetera, in order to keep these people off the street. We currently have a little over $2,000 left, $2,100 and some change in the fund, and we are hoping that with the relaxing of the restrictions, then there will be less of an issue insofar as housing available is concerned. Other things that the money have been used for have been, of course, there was an unfortunate situation at the beginning of the year that required that some therapies be paid for out of the 501c3 money. That took a pretty good chunk of it, but essentially, it's as I said, that the monies are used in support of housing, food, transportation, and where necessary for to fill in the cost for mental health for the justice-involved veterans who are in the Harnett County Treatment Court, Veterans Treatment Court. Anybody want to know anything else about what we're doing? I'll be glad to spend as much time as you'd like.
Anyone have any questions? Ms. McCoy, thank you.
I have a question. Could you explain exactly what funding you are getting and where the funding is coming from? Right.
Well, we have, obviously we get the $5,000. We've gotten the $5,000 from the Harnett County from the Harnett County. We did receive a $2,500 donation from the Elks. All of the other money that has been donated, and there's been not very much of it, has all been from private donation, from individuals and from a couple of church organizations. I think that has amounted to less than $1,000 at this time.
One more question. Do you get any federal grants?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Do you get any federal grants for the Veterans Treatment Court?
The Veterans Treatment Court grants are specifically for to pay for everything connected with the treatment court itself. It pays some salaries. It pays it pays for salaries. It pays for therapy. A number of things. I don't have anything to do with that grant money, and it does not support anything that the Combat VTC 501c3 is doing. It's a question that comes up often when I go out to veterans meetings, Veterans of Foreign Wars. I speak to them about the court. That's one of the first things they want to know is, why are you here asking for money when we know that you receive these sizable federal grants? And the answer to that is that these monies are that we use from the Combat VTC are there to fill in for that which the grant does not cover, and it's not going to pay for housing for homeless vets. It's not going to pay for food or anything like that. So it's apples to oranges, essentially. The 501c3 operates in coordination with, but as a separate entity from the Veterans Treatment Court. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning, and we also appreciate the services that you are providing and your efforts to support our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you know, it's an honor to work with the veterans. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I believe the next item on our agenda would be Harnett Soil and Water requesting bid award for stream debris removal. Ms. Lambert?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Lambert with the Harnett Soil and Water Conservation District Office. And I'm here this morning to request that the bid for our stream debris removal project, which is funded through the Natural Resource Conservation Service, be awarded to J&J Environmental. Of the bids or of the proposals that were submitted, we felt like this entity exhibited the greatest proficiency in related projects, as well as they have a specialization in stream debris removal. This is dangerous work. A lot of the areas that they will be working in are deep water or rapid moving water. Some of the banks, especially along the lower Little River, have steep slopes, so specialized equipment will need to be used for this project, as well as a lot of handwork will have to take place for this project. So it's not the type of work that just anybody is skillful enough to perform. And we feel like that J&J Environmental has the skill set as well as the proven experience to do a quality job with this project.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Any questions any commissioners have? If you would, just for those listening in, would you just maybe give us a small synopsis of the importance of this debris removal?
Sure, absolutely. With the common occurrence of heavy rains that we have been experiencing over the last few years, there has been quite a lot of vegetative debris that has collected along our waterways, down trees, large limbs. With the nature of our waterways within Harnett County, with all of this vegetative debris being there, it often slows water moving through the county, causing it to back up in certain low-lying places, causing potential and proven threat to both property and human life. And so the importance of this project is to clear this debris from the river with the hopes that with the next large rain event that we have come through Harnett County and upstream, because of course we catch all the water that falls upstream as well. But the hope is that with clearing that vegetative debris, that this water will be able to make clear passage through the county, and we will have a potential for less flooding in those lower lying areas. And in doing so, we will have protected both property and human life with this project.
Very good. Thank you for that. I believe, I can't remember which of the hurricanes it was, but it may have been, anyway, I've been around so long I get them confused, but I know we have done this years ago, and it's been a while since we've had any debris removal. Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Any other questions any commissioners have? Thank you so much. Next, we have a discussion on lease renewal for Lucknow Properties. Mr. Appel.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Okay, so just for background, about 3 years ago, we're required by the state to house probation and parole for those individuals. And 3 years ago, we moved to the Lucknow Properties in Dunn. They were in Wellington and terminate that lease and went over to Dunn. That lease is now set to expire on July 31st, 2021. And it does require us to provide a notice if we plan to renew for additional term. Now, under the current lease, the way it's written is after 3 years, we can exercise 3 additional 1-year terms at a time, so just 1-year terms. And the price would be negotiated amongst the 2 parties before the July 31st date. So we've been discussing that, but in the meantime, we did receive a letter from Mr. Dow Snipes, the owner of Lucknow Properties, offering alternatives to the 1-year renewal. So the first one would be to enter into a 2-year renewal under the same terms and conditions with no increase in rent. And the rent we've been paying for the original 3 years is $3,900 per year. And so if we did 2-year, he'll leave that price alone. And then he would offer a 4-year extension under the same terms and conditions with the modest increase up to $4,200 a month after those 2 years. And then he also did throw out as another option for the eventual purchase of the property if the commissioners ever wish to buy the property. I did have a conversation with Mr. Snipes actually this morning before this board meeting, just so I would have all the information available. They were asking if we did not amend the current lease to do a 2-year extension or whatnot, what that would look like, it would cost us. He said he would just probably do a modest increase. We'd still have to negotiate it, but a modest increase around $4,000, maybe a little bit more. Which is probably fair. I mean, there's been no increase in 3 years, but we can work that out. But he did say if you want to do 2 years, he would keep the price the same. And so I just wanted to present that to the board. I know we're not ready to move out of that building. As far as I'm aware, we're not prepared to. We need to extend the lease at least a year at this point and decide what our future plans are for probation and parole. If there's any other questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Appel. Any questions for Mr. Appel at this time? Thank you. Oh, and you're still up. Thank you. Next item, discussing the school bus stop arm ordinance, bylaws, etc. Mr. Appel.
Yes. So as we've discussed before about the stop arm, the General Statute 153A-246 allows us to do civil enforcement of 20-217, which is a criminal violation of passing a stop school bus. 153A-246 requires the board to adopt an ordinance to allow for the civil enforcement of this, and it lays out all the things that had to be included under the statute, which are incorporated in this draft. So it essentially just goes over everything that's in statute regarding notices of violations, the penalties that are associated, their appeal rights if they wish to appeal, which would go to the Independent Appeals Board. And then what happens if they're also charged with a criminal proceeding, as I discussed before. If they're charged criminally, you have to dismiss the civil citation, and if they've paid it, then you have to refund plus interest. So this lays out all the requirements of the civil enforcement under 153A-246. And this will allow us to then move forward with bus patrol for them to install the cameras and start using their system. If there's any other amendments or any questions about it, please let me know. But the one thing I would want to know, so this type of ordinance does not require a public hearing. You can adopt it, if you're fine with the way it's written. But I would ask, if you wanted to hold a public hearing, that would push it back because I would have to advertise it for a couple weeks. But that's just purely an option if you want to hear from the people. But otherwise, this ordinance can be adopted at your regular meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate your hard work on this. Any questions for Mr. Appel about the resolution? Thank you. No, Ms. McCoy?
Yes, I know it's not in this agreement, but will there be any additional employees used for this bus patrol?
I'm sorry.
Staffing, will there be any additional staff used for this
Yes,
bus
so
patrol? How many, I want to know how many and how much it's going to cost the county.
right. So under statute, it's required that a sworn law enforcement officer that's employed by a law enforcement agency has to review all the citation packages before they go out to the individual. The way that's going to be set up is that will flow through our sheriff's office. I mean, we could contract with one of the municipalities, but I think the easiest thing to do, or at least what the plan is for now, is to have a sheriff's office, department deputy review these packages. It could potentially take a full-time employee. It's all going to really, it's going to depend on how many citations are written. So if their numbers are accurate, it'll probably take about one full-time employee to review these, because they'll just keep coming in. The employee will have to review them. That's an estimate. We won't know until we're actually in this program. The school board has said that they would reimburse us for the cost of that, utilizing that employee. Again, that's all dependent on making that they're getting enough revenue from this to reimburse us those costs, but that's what the school board has presented to you all, that they would provide reimbursement costs for the administration of this program. It's just another one of those things we'll have to wait until we're actually in the program to see how that's all working out. So there's that cost. So, and if we're talking about a full-time employee, I don't know if that's going to require hiring an additional employee if someone's taken off. So you have that, either hiring for that, or if you're moving someone over to that and then having to make up for that loss of that deputy. I don't know, but I just know that it could take up to a full-time job. The other part of this is the appeals board, and I'll go over the I can go over the bylaws on that, but the way I wrote the bylaws right now is to have a 3-member board with 2 Harnett County employees and 1 citizen. Again, it's all going to depend on how many appeals are filed, of how much time it will take from those individuals away from their regular jobs. We're going to have to figure out who's going to be best suited for that. It won't be someone from the sheriff's office, obviously. So again, school board said they would reimburse us for administrative costs, which that would also include the appeals board. Otherwise, there's no direct costs to the county. Everything, the cameras are installed. We don't have to pay for the cameras that are installed. We don't have to pay for running the program itself. It's all funded through the tickets that are issued. So those are those employees that I mentioned are the kind of our direct cost.
Well, the correct answer is we don't know until the program is implemented, right?
Right, we're gonna have to get into it to see how many citations are written.
Yeah.
We have the estimates, but we won't know until we actually get started. And I imagine those numbers probably, well, this is assuming schools are gonna stay full-time in person, so school buses are running full at 100%. I would imagine there's probably gonna be more at the beginning. And it could tail off, but again, time will tell.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bell?
But, and so I'll kind of go on to the other part. So the other part in your package is a resolution authorizing application and enforcement of our ordinance. This would not require approval or adoption by you all as a board. This will have to be adopted by the municipalities. They did all say, now I haven't presented this to them, but they all were in agreement from a prior conversation that they would be willing to adopt such a resolution. That would just authorize us to issue citations within the municipalities. So this is the draft I came up with. If the board is okay with it, I'll present this to all the municipalities. Obviously I can't control them. They may want to tweak it a little bit, but obviously just, as long as they keep the bulk of this that authorizes under the statute, they want to reword a little bit of language, it's fine. The easiest thing to do is hopefully everyone adopts the same language, but we'll see about that. But I'll go ahead and present that if you all as a board are okay with the draft that I presented to you.
Any comments or questions about the draft for the municipalities?
Okay. And then the final aspect is creating bylaws for the appeals board. Again, per the statute, it's an administrative appeals that has to be conducted. So the way I had it set up right now, after talking with the sheriff and administration, is I did do 2 Harnett County employees and 1 citizen, just to have them involved. Obviously, if you want to change it, it can be any makeup that we want to. There's no requirement. It could be 3 members, it could be 5. It's however, but I decided on a 3-member panel. And then obviously we'll have to have some alternates. If you have citizens and county employees, you'll probably have to have 2 alternates. You probably have to have a county employee alternate. You probably have to have a citizen alternate. So I wrote it that way. Before I move on to the next question, are you all comfortable with that kind of setup? Do you want to do less county employees or all county employees? Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Any thoughts on that question?
Does the statute require that we use county employees for the appeal board?
No, it's the only thing the statute talks about is just an administrative appeals board, or that it has to be done administratively. It won't go through the court. So it is purely up to us how we want to operate this type of appeals board. So if you want to make it all citizens, we could, kind of like a lot of our other boards, Board of Adjustments, for example, is all citizens. I just didn't know, to make this maybe more efficient, that it may be easier to use county employees, but again, the other part of this is how much time are we taking away from these employees doing their regular job, because I just don't know how many appeals there's going to be. I know Bus Patrol said the percentage is pretty low, and I imagine that's probably pretty accurate, but I just don't know if there's going to be an influx at the very beginning of this program. So I just had to see, and we also have to decide what time of day we want to do this as well.
What are the pros and cons to having 2 county employees and 1 private citizen versus having 3 private citizens?
I think initially having county employees may make it work maybe a little bit smoother, because there's that we can decide who that is early on. I would work closely with them, help them out, as compared to citizens. I am having to train them on their off time when they have availability, because obviously they have other jobs, other things to do, as compared during the day I can work with them, especially if we did these hearings during the day, during office hours. Opposite side, having all citizens, kind of like other boards, is I'm not worried about our employees being biased or anything like that. That's not going to be an issue. But if you have all citizens, I think sometimes there can be an appearance to make sure that's neutral. So I would say that's kind of benefit. I mean, that's, like I said, that's how a lot of our other boards work. It's all citizens. Again, it's purely up to you all as a board how you want to operate this. But that's just kind of what comes to mind.
And I'll just say, if you don't mind, this is Paula. So sometimes when you have the citizen input, especially something new like this, as Chris is saying, they're more limited on their time. They don't understand what they're getting into. And sometimes they just kind of drop off and don't fulfill the commitment of being on this board. And I feel like at the first year, it might be a lot of turnover. People, hey, I didn't know I signed up for this. I don't want to do it. But if we have county employees doing it, they'll be here. That'll be part of their job to serve on this. So I mean, you can look at it either way. It's totally up to y'all, but that's just what we were thinking.
And since we're the first ones to do this, I'm sure there'll probably be some trial and error. Whatever we decide to do here may not work the best, and we can amend the bylaws again. And these individuals serve at will. So if we have to make changes, whatever you all decide, if we have to make changes after a year, we'll revisit it. If something's not working, if we can do something better. But just trying to do it best from the start, make sure we have the best setup possible.
And then another idea we thought of is you could have 1 person from the Harnett County Schools, 1 person from Harnett County Government, and then a citizen, if you wanted to spread it out and make it more like fair, because it is a school project. So that's another option.
It seems that suggestion seems more fair to me than making an employee taking an employee for the county to serve in these capacities. Because if you do that, it's going to make it mandatory for that employee to serve in that capacity. What happens if the employee don't want to serve in that capacity after they get in that position? What happens then? Will that affect their jobs? That's another thing you got to think about. So, I mean, have you even thought about these kind of questions?
Right. So
This is new to the county, and it will be new to our employees. So we need to figure out, if whether we make this mandatory for them, or if there's some way, if that employee is not satisfied with being placed in that position, how we make the change.
right, and I think if we keep Harnett County employees on this, what we do is try to identify what positions and people would possibly be best to do this,
Okay.
and get feedback maybe from them as well, and say, is this something you'd even be interested in? We selected you as a possible individual. I think there'd be conversation on both sides. The only thing we just can't account for is how many appeals are there going to be. If there's not that
Right.
many, if we're talking, I forget what Bus Patrol said. I know it's less than 5%. I think that they said end up appealing. That's not a lot of hearings. Now, again, I know these employees would have to dedicate some of their time. I've got to dedicate my time. This will be an additional duty on my end because I'll have to be in charge of it, training them. It's a quasi-judicial hearing, so there's procedures that have to be followed. So I've got to make sure, I'll be advising them, just like I do with other boards, and that's fine. But there's a commitment to a lot of people. I said, Board of Adjustment, we have staff that have to go to those meetings all the time. So there's their extra dedication of time. But they're willing participants. There's not an issue, because they know they've been identified as the people who will go to those. I know at the very beginning, seeing how it goes, they may be unhappy, but again, that's the whole purpose of identifying maybe a group of people instead of just saying, picking two, and you're in there.
Well, that makes sense. I think that's a practical way of doing it. I'm satisfied with that. I just don't want an employee getting stuck in a position that's mandatory and it's not really affiliated to their job. And that employee would be unhappy with that position.
Right.
So if you're going to monitor, you're going to pick these people that's going to serve on that position, and you're going to monitor, the training and all of that, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But I consider the county employees a valuable assets to this county. And I don't want to put them in a position that, has nothing to do with their job classification. And you just stick them there and say, hey, this is what we require of you, So what you're telling me, that you're going to monitor them, you're going to train them or whatever, and go from there. And keep in mind that this is not their primary job. So I'm satisfied with that. And if it's not, I'll be coming to you
Right.
if I get any complaints from these employees.
Right.
Because that's only fair. I got to think about the county employees.
Right. And like you said, as Paula mentioned, if we want to have a school board member also participate in this, I can reach out to them. These bylaws don't have to be adopted the next meeting. The ordinance is first and foremost, because that just allows us to do this.
Yeah.
The appeals board doesn't have to be set up until the program actually starts, and then you start getting appeals coming in. So if you want us to maybe have those further discussions and identify employees and see if the school board's willing to, I'll just pull this off, and we can have additional conversations, and then I can come back to you when necessary. I just know obviously if we keep a citizen on here, we'll have to identify, have to get that citizen on the board. That will take a little bit longer than identifying an employee or a school board employee.
I think you're going in the right direction. I just want to let you know how I feel. And I don't want any employees stuck in something that they are not pleased with.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it's okay. Yeah. We'll go with your suggestion and what you have outlined here. I'm not trying to be difficult.
Chris?
I do think highly of the county employees, and they may like it. I don't know. That's not a question of whether they're going to like it or not like it. The question is, what happens if they don't? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, I mean, you're going to be identifying individuals that are more along the lines of volunteers, and we're not going to be volunteering people to do this, correct?
Right. I don't want to put anyone in a position.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to identify good people that would be suitable for this, make sure that it's not going to conflict with. I don't want to take someone who's extremely busy and don't have an extra minute to do this.
Yeah.
So the idea would be that have some feedback and identify a number of people and then see if we can get 2 people to say, hey, yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going to get somebody with a mindset that wants to do this. I mean, yeah. If they want out, I'm sure they can get out of the position. We'll find somebody else more suitable.
And there are people in the county, like I said, I know, can think some people off the top of my head I would just reach out to initially because they deal with some of the other boards, so they know quasi-judicial proceedings. And if I can identify those kind of people and they're willing to, those are good candidates because it's less training, they understand the concept. So I'll, from my end, I'll put that work in.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have plenty of volunteers for this, so thank you.
So I guess the question I would have at this point, to kind of give Chris and staff some direction, is it the board's desire that we stay as it is presented now, or that it's changed to 1 citizen, 1 county employee, and 1 school employee?
I'm for the latter.
Okay, I see a lot of nodding heads, so let's revisit that and go 1, 1, and 1. Chris?
Okay, I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
All right, and then another question. So just as kind of background, these bylaws are set up very similar to our other boards, how they're handled. So there's not a lot of different new language in here. So in doing so, it brings up some questions to see if we want to handle it the same way. So another question I had is terms. Obviously, all other boards, we set terms. I didn't know if you want to set terms on this. I mean, now that we're going to possibly have a citizen and a school board member, maybe possibly we do want to set maximum terms on it. Because if it was county employees, that's a little bit different. We could, that could change. But the way it's written right now is I have 3 consecutive terms unless waived. So I did put a cap, but that's up to you all as well.
Any thoughts, fellow commissioners, on that?
I think a 1-year cap would be good for volunteer.
What do you have now for the citizens?
So right now it's the same for everyone. It's just 3-year terms over the remaining of unexpired term and 3 consecutive terms max. The whole idea generally behind obviously having it maxed out is to get other participation by county citizens, because most of our boards are county citizens, so it's to get some rotation, new people in there. But again, depending on this makeup, we're just dealing with 1 citizen. That's not as imperative, but if we have citizens who are interested in serving on this, that's why we put caps on them.
Right. I guess in terms of the 1-year cap, my only concern my 1-year term, my only concern there would be we'd be opening ourselves up to a lot more training. It'd be almost like the time you got comfortable and felt like you had a good handle on it, it'd be time for your term to end. But then I know you could get reappointed. So, but I'll just throw that out.
I wrote as 3-year terms for that kind of reason of not having to train someone every year in case there is high turnover rate on this and people don't want to serve on this. But that's just
right. And certainly, if they want to step aside before then, that would be their prerogative to do so, I think.
Who's going to vet these members? Even the county employee, who's going to vet these people?
Who's going to vet them?
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably, handle it with the application process like we do with our other boards and committees. I'd probably just advertise it as a spot that's open with an application form to fill out to get their background. probably no different than how we handle these others, and then you'll be presented with individuals and make a selection.
My concern is if you get someone that's has a notorious driving record, do we really want to put them on the committee? And there's nothing that says what their driving record is on the current applications.
And we can tailor application how we need to. I would say probably, have you been charged with driving by a stop school bus, conviction? Probably want to know that, make sure we're not having those kinds of individuals on there. Other part to it as well is, unlike, again, some other boards where they can only be removed for cause, this is a type of board that can be removed at will. And so if something isn't working out, or if something comes to light, we can make necessary changes as needed. But we can tailor our application to make sure we're getting good, qualified individuals who don't have issues in the background.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Gore.
like the 3-year, many times you serve on boards for the state as well as for the county. You don't really learn all that's entailed in that position in 1 year. And that puts him in a position of having to recruit people to serve on that committee yearly. And I don't think that would be good for the person that's serving on it. No, but it'd be good for the county. That's just my suggestion.
It does make it tough if you have an individual who's never been involved in these types of hearings, quasi-judicial. It makes it tough if there's a lot of turnover and quick turnover.
Yeah.
Because it is a learning process, and I can do all the training as possible, but it takes doing it to really learn it.
I agree.
So I believe I hear the consensus of thought being that we would continue to go with the recommended 3-year terms with limited to 3 consecutive terms unless that is waived. So that does give an out if you have a quality person who really enjoys doing that. So I think that that's what I'm hearing at this time. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Pell, anything else you have for us, or?
I think that's it for now.
Okay.
And since I'm going to be reaching out to the school board, I probably would not have this on at least the bylaws for adoption probably the next meeting, so I'll probably just take that one off, but we can move forward with the ordinance.
Sounds good. I think, as you said, the bylaws, we can readdress those later. It'll be a while before we'll have a need for that.
So we have more time because we're negotiating with Bus Patrol and the contract still, so that's not finalized
Right.
yet. So it gives us a little bit of time.
Sounds good.
Sorry.
Do you have a projection on maybe when we can launch this and kick it off? Is there a goal, a target date?
So for sure, next school year, that's not going to be an issue. I've done a red line version of the contract, just having a couple other people just take a quick look in their respective fields, like IT and finance, so let's make sure that they're okay. I'm going to be sending that back. Depending on how much they like the changes or not, there could be a lot of back and forth, or they could just accept it, and it could be move on pretty quickly. I know once we get this contract finalized, I know it's my understanding Bus Patrol is ready to move and get these cameras start to get installed, so it can happen pretty quickly.
Any other questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pell. Appreciate that.
I guess-
You put a lot of hard work into this.
I guess just the one follow-up. Do you want this on the next agenda just to vote on? I mean, like I said, I did bring up the idea if you wanted to hold a public hearing, but it's not necessary, but I give that option when we adopt any kind of
Right.
ordinance.
What's the board's pleasure on that? You think there's a need for a public hearing on this?
No, I do not.
I do not.
Okay, so we'll just put it aside from the one change in the bylaws there. We'll put the rest on for next meeting, and then we'll do the bylaws when we get confirmation from the school board.
That's good.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have update on Harnett County Schools Energy Performance Contract. Ms. Stewart?
That's correct. Me and Kimberly today talking about this. So we did speak with Steve Matthews from the Harnett County Schools yesterday. We've also spoken with the Local Government Commission yesterday. We had a lot of follow-up from, I think, when he came and Jonathan Locklear on March 9th. We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of brainstorming sessions to find out if there's another way to do the same thing that the schools want. I think we had spoken to you about that, trying to save the taxpayer money by coming up with alternative options. Some of them have fallen through at this time, and so we're kind of at a standstill. So I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly and let her kind of tell you what we have put together for you, and I'll be passing out a sheet for you to look at for your consideration. We still need more time to really vet and feel like it's your decision ultimately. So, but we're just trying to give you all the information you need to make the best decision for the county. So I'll let Kimberly kind of talk about the savings of it, and then we'll have some discussion on it. And I'll pass out what she's going to be talking about.
Kimberly, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So essentially, as Paula had stated, we have tried to find a resolution to bring back possible alternative solutions, ways to implement this maintenance. We understand that there are a lot of preferred maintenance issues with the school system, and the Guaranteed Energy Savings Contract is a way for, I'm sorry, I forgot my microphone, but the Guaranteed Energy Savings Contract is a way for schools to get the additional updates that they need while the capital maintenance updates, and while allowing them to focus on energy savings. And the general statute allows the school systems to borrow the money for this. And in a sense, the school system would be able to go out and finance this. There would be an energy savings or an energy contract audit. They would go in and identify areas of improvement, and then over the course of a term that's determined by the energy savings contract, the savings from the energy utility savings would go toward paying back that debt service. And the last presentation on March the 9th, and we have put together a summary of all of this in what you've just received. But on March the 9th, you heard from Steve Matthews with the school system and Mr. Locklear with the ESCO that had been selected, that the next step would be for the school or for the board to approve a resolution to be able to move, for them to move forward. And in a sense, that resolution states that you will not reduce the current expense allocation that you give them for utility costs. Reason being, if they're implementing all of these cost-saving measures, their utility costs will go down when they actually will be using that savings to pay for that debt that they borrow. So we had previously asked the board to allow us time to identify some of these proposed energy savings, and what we have given you is the list of preliminary savings or items that they would address, areas that they would address that were given to the Local Government Commission. And so the Local Government Commission, one of their concerns is that they represent the counties and the municipalities in North Carolina, and they are over our fiscal health and well-being. While they understand that there is a reason that these energy savings contracts are in existence and they are good for a lot of entities, they also identify that there's a lot of additional admin cost and then the financing costs associated with it. And so our request to you to allow us time to work with the school system, since this is the first year in our CIP, to identify what items we could actually pay for in our CIP process. We're back to that. So if you would, I've just given you a brief summary. And so the project summary that I've listed out, has been taken from what was provided to the Local Government Commission, just to identify the various areas where they would focus on improvements. And so I just wanted to point out to you that the school would receive an approximated $13.9 million in, and you can see chiller upgrades, boiler upgrades. The bulk of this is in lighting upgrades, where they would go in and switch out to LED lightings. And again, this is a preliminary. If you choose to approve a resolution for them to move forward, they would actually go in and do an internal audit and specifically identify those specific areas that they would address. So just preliminary for planning purposes, we took the proposed updates and changes that were presented. We're looking at 13.9, and again, I'm just rounding, in hard cost. Additional cost would be 6.5 million, which would bring their total project cost to 20.4 million, and that would be financed over 20 years. So one of the areas that we had looked at, and again, this is just something that we're looking at, would be to consider possibly borrowing 15 million. And 15 million at 10 years would be a payback of 16.8 million, whereas the 20.4 million in these proposed changes or these proposed energy savings for this contract, the school system would be paying back 26 million over 20 years. And that is out of the current expense funds that we actually give to them. So over a 20-year period, as part of the current expense allocation that we give the schools every year, they would be paying this back. So in a sense, it's current expense money coming from the board that's going to the schools. So this is one of the areas that we had looked at. There's some additional, due to time constraints, there are some additional areas that we were trying to look at, because we're trying to get the school system the updates, the capital improvements, these energy saving measures that they can, but still reserving that future use of that money. And I know that was a lot. So do you have any questions?
And before we go on, I just wanted to mention too, in speaking with the local government commission yesterday, there are some other counties that are kind of in the same situation we're in, and they're looking at doing the same thing we're talking about, which is doing it through the county. The county would borrow the money on behalf of the school system and then work out an agreement on how technically the school would pay the county back versus paying back the ESCO. So it's very complicated. It's a lot to think about, and we just wanted to make sure that you had everything, that we have up-to-date information, and we are still in negotiations and talking to these other counties. It's just been hard to get the right people to return our calls and get the information we need. But we are trying to do our due diligence to give you all the information you need. And again, it's ultimately up to you what you decide to do. So we don't know if you want us to keep spending time on it and come back to you with more information. And Mr. Matthews with the school system is not, he's open to either option. He didn't have a preference. They don't care as long as they get the projects done, was what he said. As long as we know we'll get the money and we can get those projects done, they don't care how you guys fund it. So we're just trying to work with them closely and with the local government commission and with all the partners to make sure we're doing the right thing to not put the county in any kind of bind in the future.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? I guess my question would be, if I remember correctly, on the CIP, there was a little over $200 million in needs identified for the school system. Is that correct?
And I think that includes I think there's new construction and these type projects. So I think the $200 million was a total of all of that, if I'm not mistaken.
So what would you suspect current needs, not including new construction, identified on the CIP would be?
I do not know. I'd have to look that up.
Would it be in excess of $20 million?
I don't recall.
We would have to pull that to see what was given.
I guess my question would be, if I understand this correctly, y'all correct me if I misspeak, but if I understand this correctly, we'll be talking about, with the energy performance contract, borrowing $20 million, which the savings, the company is guaranteeing that the savings that would be generated through the energy savings would then pay the note.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And so the school over 20 years would be paying back $26 million.
Through the savings they're making on the equipment that's put in.
Mm-hmm.
So if the savings does not pay the note, the company is then tasked, according to what I understand with the statute, with paying the note.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the school, in essence, if they're paying the note, they're paying it through savings that they're realizing through new and efficient equipment.
Yes, a portion of, yes.
So I guess I'm saying, why would we not want to take advantage of a program that is going to pay for itself. And then if we have the ability to borrow 15 million to take care of some of these other needs that the school system has.
And we get what you're saying, and also what this would do would allow the school system that capacity that that they would be saving from the energy savings, they could use that for whatever they wanted.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. So yes, it's whatever the board decides. It doesn't, like I said, we're just trying to give you all the options and tell you.
I think that's why the statute provides that the county, we as a board would agree not to cut utility allocations from prior years just because they're saving this money.
That's correct. And because we are low wealth, our funding formula is based on the per pupil allocation. So we cannot give less per pupil than we gave in the prior year.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
We do not define it by function like that. We give them per pupil. So, and I think basically what we were trying to make sure that we all understood was that we will be giving them current expense funds. But in turn, it's just our thought was that if we could borrow the 15 million and then make that available to them, they would have full use of 15 million and not have to pay back the additional, that there would be a cost savings. And you're looking at 20 years over.
And then the
over 10.
savings that was realized by the county
And
could
then that
be
would
used
continue.
to
They could pocket
do
that
other
savings.
things they need to do. I understand. Thank you. Ms. McCoy? Yes, ma'am.
I did hear you say that you would set aside a certain amount in this program here for capital outlet.
I'm sorry, Ms. McCoy, I didn't understand you.
I think I heard you say that you were setting aside a certain amount in this program for capital outlet, pay for the capital for the schools, capital outlet for schools.
Well, this is the first year that the schools have participated in our CIP program where they identify, just like with the current CIP program that the county has, we go out and we look long range, and we start setting aside money and create, in a sense, a funding mechanism. So they are participating in our program now.
I understand that part of it, but what I don't understand is that you say you're setting aside a certain amount of money, but will that amount of money increase as years go by?
Potentially, based on the school needs.
Based on the school needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't know what the school's going to need in the future, right?
Right.
Okay, I got you. Just want to make sure I understand what we're doing here.
Any other questions, comments, any commissioners have?
Has the school board expressed like a preferred or best option? One
What they
option that's
presented
better over the other?
No, what they've just presented to the board, to you guys, is what their recommendation is going with the the guaranteed energy savings program.
Okay, and basically.
Because we've not addressed their board. We've been working through staff just to talk through the options to see what would be beneficial for them.
And all they need is a resolution from us saying that we are not going to cut their funding that we're currently give them or reduce. Gotcha. And if we did in the future increase what we fund them, will that in turn give them more savings, I guess, in the future, according to this, or?
No, basically, if that resolution is passed to allow this contract to go forward on the school side, we will continue the funding mechanism that's currently, it's in place until the board approves otherwise. But right now, the funding mechanism is based on the 3-year low wealth average, and it takes the highest of the last 3 years, and then the second month ADM, which is always the highest ADM count. So it's always based on that. So we calculate that amount and we give them 1/12 of that every year, and then they would continue to get that. It's our thought in trying to find an alternative method was to put more money into their pocket. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, because they do have so many needs, and we have capital needs and construction needs. We were trying to make sure that we were putting the most money in their pocket, and I think that was the LGC's question too, is that you're financing 20 years, well, for 20 years, and it's going to be something, if I understand correctly, and Paula, you help me. throughout that 20 years, the company will continue to monitor and make sure that it is, and they will work with the staff. But it was my kind of understanding with talking to Mr. Matthews yesterday that there are a lot of cost saving measures that they're already implementing and that they're already monitoring. So, and as Paula stated, we have not discussed this specifically with the school staff yet. We kind of wanted to get back and report to you to let you know what we had found out. But the intent of all of it was to maximize the most money that we could for the school system.
And I can probably elaborate a little bit further on that. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit on any proposal such as this would be such thing as lighting upgrades, water conservation. That's what you're going to get your immediate cost savings from. Those are things that our maintenance department has been upgrading as they could. There was a rebate program a number of you are probably aware of, especially with the upgrades with lighting, that they were turning around and taking those rebates, buying more LED lights, getting them in place. So there are some things that the system has been doing with regard to energy saving measures at this point. The problem that arises for the school system would be the high dollar items. The chillers, the boilers, things that are big ticket items up front. So, and obviously, any company that comes in, their first priority is going to hit that low hanging fruit and get those savings rolling immediately, and then do some of the larger ticket items down the road. It is a program that the school system did years ago on a much smaller scale. So anyway, this is obviously a much larger scale. So, Ms. Stewart, I guess my question would be, if we, let's say we put this discussion off until the next work session on the 13th, would that give you time to talk with Dr. Fleming and the Board of Education and see which they would prefer?
We can. It's whatever you guys want us to do. And I did want to mention one other thing that I failed to say earlier. In speaking with Mr. Matthews, we did talk about an investment grade audit would have to be done to determine exactly the needs, because this is just an estimate. And so then I asked him, well, would it be better to let's go ahead and do the investment grade audit and then come back to everybody, and then we'd have real numbers, we'd have real scope and everything. But I think it's part of that proposal, so he didn't know if you could really pull that out and do it. He didn't know companies that would come in and just do it, even for a fee, if they weren't going to get the contract. So we don't know if that's a possibility, but we had hoped we could have real numbers. That was another thing we were trying to get to y'all, but I mean, we just can't. And they are doing some things all along, and some of what they asked for in the capital is also covered in this. So that's where we were talking about we'd have to kind of go through it and make sure we're giving y'all the correct information. But yes, that would give us more time if we could have till the 13th. That would be acceptable for me.
Okay. Well, I don't know this definitely, but I would, even if this company was not willing to come in and do an industrial grade audit for a fee, I'm sure there are companies out there that would, or at least I would think so. But anyway, if y'all will have those discussions and put that back on the agenda for the 13th work session. And in the meantime, also check on the question I had about other things that's not new construction and how much we're looking at there and that sort of thing. That will help us.
We'll have that. We'll have all those numbers
forward
for you, and I apologize we didn't have those today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have discussion of economic development items for the public hearing on on April the 5th. Mr. Price?
And Mr. Price won't be here. He had another conflict. Something came up and he had to go take care of that. So I'll be covering that for you today. As you know, we've had several meetings about economic development recently, and most recently we had Rose and Associates in to talk about some consulting services we would like for them to provide for the county. And as you know, a few years ago, the state statutes changed, and anytime that you are going to do any kind of expenditure under economic development, you have to have a public hearing. Usually, it's covered at budget time. We do the one public hearing at the budget time, and everything that's included in the budget gets heard by the public, and they make their comments. Well, these are 2 changes to the budget, and that's the reason we're having to have this public hearing on April 5th. So the first one would be to fund the Economic Development Director position for the rest of this fiscal year, and we just said up to $56,076, and then the consulting services agreement with Rose and Associates up to $20,000 for this fiscal year. We've prorated all the numbers from because each public hearing has to be for that fiscal year. So this public hearing is just from now till June 30th. This will cover these expenditures, and then July 1 in June we'll have the public hearing for the next fiscal year's budget. So that's really all this is. It'll take place Monday at 9 a.m. And we usually like to do our public hearings at night, but with us being remote and having it broadcast, hopefully if people have comments, they'll be able to dial in and give their comments at that time. But that's what the public hearing will be for on Monday.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Next, we have strategic plan discussion. Mr. Brian Haney. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
County staff and Commissioner Nickel met with Lydian Altman from the UNC School of Government's Center for Public Leadership and Governance on March 10th to discuss the county's interest in engaging the School of Government to assist with the development of an organization-wide strategic plan that also includes development of a new mission, vision, and values for the county. Following the meeting, Ms. Altman provided a draft proposal, which I have shared with you this morning, or a framework for a proposal. The framework is for a phased process over what they consider to be a fairly aggressive timeline to meet, I think, the wishes previously stated by the board. During the first phase, the School of Government would facilitate a retreat with the board, county management, and department heads to develop an initial draft of a vision, mission, goal areas, and organizational values for the county. This could take place as early as May or June of this year, so in the current fiscal year. Facilitation would assist the county by bringing in a neutral third party who can effectively help the group decide on objectives in a process, set a realistic agenda, and keep the discussion on track, help gain clarity on decisions and action items, and allow all stakeholders to participate. The county has used facilitators previously for board retreats in the past, and we believe engaging a trained, experienced facilitator in this process would be beneficial and make sure we walk away with clear goals and action items, and that all stakeholders are able to engage effectively in this process. During the second phase, we would work with the School of Government to engage stakeholders from both the county's workforce and the community to solicit feedback and contribute to the framework. This phase would also include development of a draft action plan and a final strategic plan, and this could take place as early as July through December of this year. The third and final phase would involve the School of Government assisting the county in putting the plan into action. The School of Government would work with county management, department heads, and key staff to create a performance management plan. This would include refining the objectives, developing performance measures that correspond to the strategic goals, and identifying data sources and data collection frequency for performance measures. And this could take place as early as January through June of 2022. The costs that you have on the plan, the draft that was provided, could be anywhere from $36,000 to $69,000, depending on the level of involvement and method selected. So today, I'm seeking direction from you. Do you have any questions or comments regarding the draft scope that has been provided? And then, are you interested in moving forward with the School of Government based on the draft scope provided? If so, staff will work with them to submit an agreement based on the scope provided for your consideration. Or would you like to investigate alternative options for this process? And I'm available for questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. Any comments, questions?
I just want to say thanks for putting this together. It's time that the county has a vision and goal that everyone's working towards in order to hopefully unify the county a little bit better. So we're all working towards the same goal, and we actually have an objective. we can be proud to live here in Harnett County. Yeah, I just think that once we get this set up and we actually have a vision, something to go towards, you know, the school of government will give us the legs to get there, hopefully. So,
Thank you, Mr. Nichol, and I do appreciate your participation in researching this with staff as well. Any other comments or questions? Do I sense the will of the board that Mr. Haney proceed in this direction with school of government? Everybody good with that? All right, I think I see heads nodding, Mr. Haney, so we'll let you continue to proceed on that path and look forward to hearing from you down the road.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have a request from Harnett Regional Water for a new senior engineering technical position. Ms. Stewart?
That's correct. So, as you all know, the growth in the county is causing a lot of stress and strain on our departments to meet the services that are demanded. So one of the biggest departments that's hit with all the new construction is our Harnett Regional Water Department. So this is a formal request made by Harnett Regional Water Director Steve Ward to approve the recruitment and hiring of a senior engineering technician to assist the department with utility review and construction observation required during the plan submittal and construction process for new developments. The position is a grade 23 on the county's class and grade table at a starting salary of $45,877, and the maximum is $75,697. This will be funded from the existing Harnett Regional Water annual budget, and they're requesting approval at the upcoming April 5th meeting at 9 a.m. on the consent agenda. So do I have any questions on the position? I know most of you know there's a need for it, so I don't think there'll be a lot of discussion on it, but it is something we feel is needed in order to meet the demands on the department.
This is classified as a technician position.
Right, it's an senior engineering technician. It would be
Why?
someone to assist our engineer.
Why don't we get an engineer instead of a technician? We don't have an engineer right now.
We do. Shane
Shane's
Cummings.
does Shane have a degree, engineering
He's a PE.
degree?
He sure is. He's a PE.
Is he a PE?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He is, and that's what we didn't think we needed 2 engineers. We also use third parties to help us with some of the engineering work that's needed outside of his capacity. So we didn't know that we needed 2 full engineers. We feel like the tech could go out and do a lot of the legwork and a lot of the document retrieval, and let our PE handle that part of it.
Is this going to improve or increase the amount of time that Shane's in the office?
It should, if this person does the legwork, if the person goes out in the field. I mean, I'm sure Shane will have to meet in the field as well. I think it'll be both. I think I'm sure there'll be some field work and some office work, but at least they could tag team. One stays in the office, and then there'd be always somebody available. So hopefully there wouldn't be a lot of, like, where no one would be available.
Okay.
It's up to you. It's up to what the board's pleasure on this. If
It's definitely needed. In fact, the main complaint, or one of the main complaints, is that when Shane is not in the office, everything stops. And so hopefully this will eliminate that.
Ms. McCoy?
This is, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, is this based on all the construction that's happening here in this county now?
It is. It is. The demand is just so
It's a
high.
demand.
Yeah, there's so many developments right
It's
now
large to be.
all over the county.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? And I do appreciate you and Mr. Ward bringing this to us. I know we like to wait for a new budget year to do things like this, but I do agree that we do seem to have a critical need that we need to address to help our citizens. So I do appreciate that. I am interested, so we do involve some third-person contracting to help with these services when
Yes.
it gets overwhelming, let's say.
Right, or if there's
Okay.
something that we're just not quite sure, we do have partners, multiple partners, just
Great.
like we have for every other project. There's not one group that we favor over the others.
Great, great. All right, thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, that brings us to the county manager's report. Ms. Stewart?
Okay, so the first thing we've got on there is to look at the April 5th draft agenda, make sure you're okay with everything on there. So under consent agenda, item C, the Harnett County Public Library requests permission to amend the rate and fee schedule to reflect a change in tax charges. Then item D, General Services, Harnett Regional Jetport requests consideration and approval of the continuation of the ground lease agreement with Stacy and Judy Williams. The county leases land for the non-directional beacon located north of runway 5 at 541 Carson Gregory Road in Coates. Contract term is for 5 years with a lump sum payment annually of $5,000. Item E is also General Services concerning the Jetport and its approval of the project ordinance for the airfield lighting rehabilitation project. Funding is provided by the NCDOT, the Division of Aviation. Total eligible costs are $1.486 million, with NCDOT providing 90% and the county providing the 10% match of $148,649. And this project was approved under our, well, it's recommended for approval under our fiscal year 2028 capital improvement program. Item F, Soil and Water requests approval of the bid award to J&J Environmental for the stream debris removal for the Upper Little River, Lower Little River, and Anderson Creek in the amount of $1,638,347. The legal department requests approval to renew the lease with Lucknow Properties for the next fiscal year. And is that what y'all wanted to do, was do it 1 year at a time? What did we ever, I'm just trying to make sure I understood where we're going with that. Do we want to do one, I think the current lease, Chris, was 2 1-year?
Current lease is 1 year, but the proposal is to amend it for a 2-year extension.
Okay. So I guess, so here, do we need to change this to renew it for a 2-year term? And to give you an update on the probation housing, we are doing a feasibility study this next fiscal year to figure out where to put all the remaining departments that are left, because the goal is still to bring everybody to Lillington. So the goal is to move them back to Lillington at some point. Problem is we don't have anywhere to put them. So we're doing a feasibility study on the 3rd floor of the courthouse and then some other areas, and just see all the county's needs and then be in a position to present that to you. That's why we didn't think in 1 year we'll have time to get all that done. So that's why we need to at least extend this 1 year, possibly 2.
Ms. Stewart, since we do have some questions or decisions to make with regard to length, can we pull this out of consent and
We
put it
can.
as a standalone?
We
So
can.
we can discuss that further if needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then item H was the new senior engineering tech position we spoke about earlier in Harnett Regional Water. Item I is the finance officer requests approval of the Town of Andrew ABC Board's request for reimbursement of the overpayment for the bottle tax in the amount of $4,925.45. And I know we have been discussing this at work sessions, and this is the final, we have come to the, this is the final number. Finance has done and worked with the ABC Board, and so that's why we didn't do it as a discussion item today, because that's just been an ongoing, but we want to get them reimbursed, so that's on here for item I. And then J is a proclamation to honor Margaret Regina Wheeler. Item K, library requests approval of a resolution donating surplus library property to the municipal branches. So what's happening with that, just for you to know, as the library moved and other departments have gone over and looked at the furniture, and also other municipal libraries, most of the libraries are going to take the shelving. So we just need the board to approve donating those surplus goods to the towns, the municipal branches. And then some of the other furniture will be relocated in county government. And then some of it we may come back to you and have to just surplus it. We don't know yet about that. Item L, Harnett Regional Water formally requests that the board approve and execute an easement to Duke Energy to supply water to a wastewater lift station in Irwin associated with the school's wastewater extension project. And then 5 we have actually special presentations this time. We'll have, if we can get Gina here, we'll have a presentation to her of the proclamation and then also the 2021 National Service Recognition. Item 6 are appointments, and you have those before you as well. There are, under Harnett Regional Jetport, there's 3 items for you to consider, and then under Spout Springs Relief Fund Board, there's a request there as well.
So there are two vacant spots on the Regional Jetport Committee other than
Yes, sir. There's one.
one.
Oh, well, I'll have to check with Shannon on that.
I checked with Gina a while ago. There's one open slot on the Airport Advisory Board, and then the 2 that Matt and I are requesting are ex officio members.
Let us check, we'll check on that before we end the meeting today and make sure.
Thank you. And we still have, we still have a vacancy for Board of Equalization. I think we still have one at-large vacancy as well that we've not filled, correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. McCoy?
can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we creating these positions on the Regional Jet Committee? Or is that slot already there? For
The
2 commissioners?
Right, the 2 commissioners were actually a change in the bylaws for that committee that created those ex officio
They
positions.
changed the bylaws? Just want to make sure we're doing we're doing something.
And we did
that
as
we
well,
are-
yeah.
we're doing it in the right way.
Right, we amended the bylaws to add those ex officio members and made a few other changes regarding membership and so on. So those are all changes that you all adopted, that we made and you all
Okay.
adopted.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson, I apologize.
Probably direct this more towards Paula. The Harnett County Board of Equalization and Review from District 2, how district sensitive is that position? Does it have to come from District 2?
It does.
Because I don't think we've had anybody apply for that.
I know, and that's hard, and we keep trying to, we've been pushing on social media, we've been pushing, so if anybody knows anybody, that's the other way, it's just trying to get word of mouth out there, but there's not been any people coming in for District 2.
Yeah, I know 2 people that are right across the line. That would be really
Yeah,
good for
they
it.
have to, unfortunately, they have to live in the district.
Are we advertising this still on the
We
county
are.
site and in the
We
paper?
are, they're on the county site, and we've done, I don't know if they've been in the newspaper, I know we've done it, pushed on social media, but I'll check on the newspaper.
Yeah, I had somebody that was just across the line a couple 100 yards away in a different district that would be a very good candidate, however, yeah, so if anybody listening knows anybody in District 2 out there by, where you stretch from Anderson Creek all the way up this way, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so got any sort of real estate background or anything like that, please submit an application.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I apologize, but
Oh, that's no problem.
go ahead.
And then the item 7 will be our oath of office for Lindsay Lucas to be our acting clerk to the board upon Gina's retirement. Item 8 will be the update on the spring litter sweep by Chad Bean, our solid waste director, and the environmental officer, Andrew Tyler. And then item 9, we'll change that to be the Harnett County Legal Department requests approval from the board to approve the school bus stop arm ordinance and proposed resolution authorizing the application and enforcement of the stop arm ordinance within, if he has time to talk to the town. You probably won't have time, but no, we'll take that out too.
Probably just need the ordinance.
Yeah, just the main ordinance is what we'll bring forth on Monday. And then item 10 is the public hearing for the economic development expenditures that we spoke about earlier. And that should be it.
So on 9, we are, in addition to the bylaws, we're pulling the municipal resolution as well. Did I hear that?
Yeah, so that's something you don't have to approve.
Okay, very good.
Once we adopt the ordinance,
Gotcha.
then hopefully they'll adopt that
Sure.
resolution.
Thank you. You probably said that earlier, and it's probably gone over my head, so thank you. And if I could ask a question also about currently item L on the consent agenda. Now, is that lift station, is that in conjunction with the connection of Anderson Creek and South Harnett?
It is.
Okay, very
It
good.
is.
Thank you.
And the one going down by Cape Fear as well on 421.
All right, very good.
Okay, so the upcoming meetings and dates of interest, you'll have that before you as well. There's really, the only thing is this Friday is a holiday, of course, and I did need to ask your recommendation or get your approval on this. So the Vincent Valuations that's doing the field appraisal work for the county for the reappraisal, they have requested to work on Friday. We did not allow them to work last year on Good Friday based on the board feedback, so I just kind of need to know if this board, if you're okay with them working Friday or not. And the only reason, I think the reason the board last year voted not to is because there would be no staff here if there were questions or concerns or the public was calling in to say, why is this person in my yard and we're closed? That was the only, that was the reason. But it's totally up to you if you want them to work or not on Friday.
Mr. McCoy?
Another thing I need to add, one of the reasons we didn't approve it last year was because of COVID too.
Well, correct.
That was one of the reasons.
Do I hear any thoughts for this year? Yay or nay? I think I'm okay with it if the rest of the commissioners are. I mean, they've been here over a year now. I think most people understand what's going on.
Okay, I'll let them know. They'll be glad to hear it. They like to get that work in, so they'll be glad. And then the only other upcoming meeting and an invitation that is our joint meeting and lunch with the Board of Education on Monday, May 3rd, downstairs in the training room. And then I just have a couple other notes to get back to you on. So Lindsay's going to, I don't know, do you want to, are there, how many copies? Oh, well, let me just tell you about this one then. This is, the school system sent us this morning the needs-based grant application for the chairman of the board to sign. And I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, we've talked about that one a lot as well, but I think they've got to have it by April 1st. So I just wanted to make sure the board was in consensus that that the school board is putting forth that needs-based grant application for the $10 million, giving up the lottery for the 5 years, and then the school, they're just asking that the chairman sign that today. So I just want to make y'all aware of that. And then the last thing I've got, we've been talking about possibly reopening. I know a lot of people have been wanting to come into this building. We've had, I know numerous times when I'm going or coming, there's a lot of people wanting to come in. And so the library is possibly looking at the 12th or the 19th to reopen the library. So we kind of want to get y'all's feedback. Our numbers, unfortunately, this week went up a lot. So we don't know what that means or why yet, but I just want to kind of talk it through with the board. We thought we could do some soft openings of our buildings with just by appointment only, but with this building, we'll have to be open because people come into meetings and people going to the library, we really can't shut it down. So just kind of want to get y'all's feedback on, I know a lot of other things are opening up. A lot of county governments are still kind of not, the state is still not. We were trying to go with the state and so that there wouldn't be confusion between the courthouse and us and everybody because we're all under a different jurisdiction. But I think we're getting a lot of questions about really wanting to reopen. So I wanted to talk about that for just a minute if y'all got some thoughts on it.
Any thoughts any commissioners would like to express at this time?
Yes, I do. I was actually going to bring this up after the closed session. In light of the governor easing restrictions, as well as the Harnett County Board of Education going back to full-time in person, I definitely would like to discuss reopening the county, at least all the departments, kind of do away with the restrictions, and the remote learning, open the meetings up to the public. I think it's about time.
I'm in agreement with that.
And I believe, as I understand it, of course, I'm sure if you don't know off the top of your head, we can research this really easily, but think we're still under a mask mandate, and the social distancing has been reduced to 3 feet. Is that what I'm sure?
Yeah.
I mean, am I correct on that? Okay, so in other words, I'm, as long as we continue to adhere to what the expectations are, I have no problem with going along with reopening, as Mr. Nickel has, and Mr. Weatherspoon has agreed to as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. McCoy?
may I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Surely the board is gonna do what everybody agreed to. But I want you all to keep in mind, even though the governor did open up the state more, the numbers shot up. As long as we do it and we're following the guidelines, making sure that people wear their masks to making sure that everybody's safe. I guess we'll do what the majority agreed to do. Because gotta say this, COVID is no joke. And some don't believe it. But the thing about it is, you have complications from the rest of your life if you survive it. So that's all I gotta say.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a statement. I agree with opening back up as long as we do it in a reasonable and prudent manner. Follow the guidelines of wearing the mask and the social distancing. I'm all for opening back up as much as we can. I think everybody is tired of this pandemic, but it has not gone away and won't go away for a while. We got to adhere to some restrictions, but I'm all for opening up as much as possible.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy, and Mr. Johnson, for your comments as well. So I think I'm hearing that as long as we continue to abide by expected guidelines, that both the governor and the, just drew a blank on Health and Human Services, whatever it is, have come up with, that we're in favor of you going ahead and proceeding in that direction.
We'll keep you apprised of what we find out about the library. Like I said, it could be the 12th, it may be the 19th, but I would say within the mid-April, we should be able to open things back up. And also, our virtual learning program is going to end April 12th over at the Ag Center, so there'll be more meetings that are being able to be held there. We've had to push off a lot of meetings to other places, so these rooms downstairs will be available as well as the Ag Center training room. So it is going to open up. People are ready to get back out and meet in person as long as we can keep it socially distanced and all that. We'll have all the signs up and have the mask available and take all the CDC guidelines into account as well. And that's all I have.
I have one more
Yes,
suggestion,
Mr.
Mr.
Cole.
Chairman. I would suggest that when citizens enter into the building, that we all provide masks for those citizens.
We do. We do have those available.
Okay.
And the thermal things as well, correct? Can we get one of those over here, I reckon?
Temperature checks and all of that.
Right. We had been doing that previously when we were open. We were doing the temperature checks for meetings and things like that. If that's what you want us to do, we can definitely do that. We do have the equipment to do so.
I agree to that, yeah.
I agree with
I
that.
think it may be hard at the library. That's
They
my
had to
only
shut the
concern.
courthouse
I don't know if
down
they
the
can
other
do it there because you've got multiple entrances, and I'm not sure how we would stage unless we open just one end of the library. So we'll work on that as well by the time we'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart, because one reason I mentioned that is because they had to close the courthouse 2 weeks ago. So we want to be as safe as possible.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we have need for closed session today.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board go into closed session for the following purposes. 1, to discuss certain personnel matters. 2, to instruct the county staff concerning the position to be taken by the county in negotiating a contract for the acquisition of real property. And 3, consultation with the county's legal staff in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege concerning the handling of certain litigation, including the following case: David Johnson versus Brandon Davies and others. Harnett County File Number 21 CBD 514. This motion is made pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11, A, 6, 5, and 3.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. We have a motion to go into closed session. Do I hear a second?
Johnson motion,
Thank
second.
you, Commissioner Nickel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We'll now go into closed session.
I just wanted to make sure that the public, we changed the